WFM 91.7.
Good morning and welcome to Political Arena on Women Radio 91.7, Nigeria's only radio station for women and their families. Welcome to Political Arena, where we discuss politicking in Nigeria. My name is TAYLAUR Ajamma. Today on Political Arena, we're discussing Roadmap to 2023, exploring solutions to issues of funding for women in politics. Roadmap to 2023, exploring solutions to issues of funding for women in politics. The cost of running for office in Nigeria is huge due to the level of poverty, high rate of illiteracy, trust deficit in politicians, the size of Nigeria as a country, the corrupt but opaque practices of political parties, and the multi-ethnic nature of the country. In a 2013 survey conducted by UN Women, 80% of respondents identified the lack of access to funding as one of the biggest challenges to women's entry into politics. As if that's not enough, at the Women Aspirant Summit held on 31st July 2018 in preparation for the 2019 general elections, female aspirants affirmed that over 3/4 of finances required to prosecute an election is expended on or before the primaries. This is worse in situations where political parties hold delegate elections to determine the party flag bearer. So with funding posing this big a challenge to women participation in politics and, of course, election into political participations, what then is the solution? Well, I have with me my guest today, TARI TAYLAUR, Youth Party House of Assembly candidate, ETI-OSA 1 constituency, right here in Lagos State. Hello, TARI.
Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Yes, good morning. It's good to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Good morning.
No worries, Victoria. No worries. How's your day been so far?
Well, so far so good. Nice. I've done some exercise. I've just prepared myself for this interview, and then I have more meetings in the afternoon.
Okay, busy day, busy day. All right, let's get the show on the road then. Thank you very much once again for joining us. And congratulations on being the Youth Party House of Assembly candidate for ETI-OSA 1 constituency. How does that feel?
Thank you. Well, I mean, it's always an honor to be sort of chosen or, affirmed by your peers. I mean, for you to emerge as, candidate, or even to declare your intention in the nomination process and all that, people have to nominate you. People have to put you forward, and it takes a vote of confidence, to be able to, say, what, I believe in you, and we want you to go for us. So I take that, very dear to my heart, the fact that they believe in me and they invest their trust in my leadership. So, it's something that I hold dear, and it motivates me to do more every day.
Sounds good. Sounds very good. I appreciate that. All right, this is Political Arena once again, and the phone line is open. You can call in to contribute, call in to ask questions to my guest, and just basically let your voice be heard on this subject. Today, we're discussing Roadmap to 2023, exploring solutions to issues of funding for women in politics. And that's what we're discussing today. I am TAYLAUR Ajamma, and I have with me TARI TAYLAUR, Youth Party House of Assembly candidate, ETI-OSA 1 constituency, Lagos State. Now, let's talk about funding. Do you think that funding can contribute significantly to an increase in participation and election of women in politics?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, politics can be very expensive depending on how you approach it. In your introduction, you spoke about the primaries process. And because of the sort of political space that we operate in, where it's not necessarily your ability or capacity to deliver that puts you at the forefront, but sometimes it's been corrupted, and, it's your ability to, move the delegates, whip up the delegates that you want by giving them incentives and all that. So that makes the process very expensive and doesn't always put the best people forward at the end of the day. So a lot of women looking at that, how difficult it is, that terrain is, will sort of shy away. and, maybe because they don't have the level of funding required to go through that process, or they just feel that they don't have what it takes to, play the game at that level, and they will now, take a back seat or whatever. But funding, is not all over the world, where if you're running for public office, you need funding. And there are always electoral guidelines to funding. I mean, there are limits to the amount of money that you can receive from one, donor or something. There are guidelines for it, okay? It doesn't just happen in a vacuum. But funding is always done mostly by, politics is really about interest. There are people that may have legitimate interest in wanting to see a particular candidate come forward. Maybe the policies that candidate is looking to drive in office are favorable to them. So they may come together and say that we will find candidates that align with our own interests, and we will sponsor them, we will fund their campaigns. Mm-hmm. Well, at the level I operate in politics now, which is mostly at the grassroots level, I'm running for state assembly now. Last year, I ran at the local government elections for councillor in the Lekki Kate ward. So I operate on the local level, really. And at that level especially, and I know that it's not so much different at the state and federal, because I have friends, and colleagues who are on those levels as well. Yes. We are not really there yet. We haven't really gotten to that point where we have what is referred to as political action committees, PACs. These are groups of concerned interests, if you want to put it that way, who come together and say, what, we'll find candidates who we will back because their policies align with the interests that we're looking to promote. So if we have more PACs, and PACs, a lot of times when people hear these things, they think it's always negative. It doesn't always have to be negative. Okay. It can be the Association of Female Bankers, for example. What if they come out and say, we like certain policies that this female candidate is driving. Let us back her up. Let us fund her campaign. Or it could be, a pressure group in agriculture, or a pressure group in, power generation, or maybe recycling energy, or something that people are passionate about, and they are willing to put their money where their mouth is. So when they find candidates that they feel will promote those policies, then they put the money behind them. But we are not quite there yet, unfortunately.
I understand that. It's the reality of the political terrain in Nigeria today, and it's really a sad reality based on everything you've said. But hopefully things get better. So what are the top 3 reasons for you that women are struggling with low representation in politics? We're still coming back to funding, but I want to get that as a background from your experience.
Okay, so I think that there is... like I spoke earlier about, how the primaries process and the intra-party politics throws up candidates, because it's only the people that the parties present that people can vote for.
Exactly.
If a party does not present you, we don't do, Nigeria in our electoral act, we don't accommodate independent candidates. So a party must put you forward. And, the process of getting a party's ticket, especially in the what they call legacy parties, the PDP, the APC, it is difficult. It is difficult, and, it's a battle, it's a fight, and it's money-driven. It's money-driven entirely. So if a lot of women are not thrown up by that process, then there will be very low representation of women, in the governance, in the politics and governance space. Another thing I have to mention, which a lot of women, if women are listening, I need to point out that there need to be more women as members of political parties, because you're not going to just come from nowhere and want to take the tickets of a party.
The party would not endorse you, not in that way.
Exactly. They have to know you. They have to be able to attach a track record to you that, this is what she has been doing. This is how she has been serving. They must know that, you are a good leader, or you are a good mobilizer of people. They must know something about you. You're not just going to come from nowhere and they say, except you are coming with a what they call it, a bullion van, and you have the money to come and bribe everybody. Maybe that's the way you want to approach things. I don't know. But if you want to do things right, it is important for you to have been part of that party system, volunteering, serving, making your mark, in the background, so that when you now step forward, there are people who would naturally and organically support you, and you can by the grace of God emerge as a candidate. So it's important for women to join political parties at whatever level in your ward. Just know what's going on, just be part of it, and you never know the opportunities that will come up for you to be able to step forward. And then the second thing is that I think that there are quite a number of myths and misconceptions about politics, and particularly women in politics.
Okay.
A lot of times you hear things which have probably just become part of our social narrative. We don't really interrogate them. We don't really question, their validity of such statements and all. A lot of people think that when you're a woman in politics, that you are wayward. You are not staying in your home to look after your family or your house. You are busy going up and down the place. So there are all those sorts of misconceptions and myths about women in politics that I guess some decent women may not want to have that stain on their reputation or whatever. So they just feel it's safer to just stay away. But, at the end of the day, the question I always ask, women and people when I talk to them about this is that, look, if you have value that you to offer your community or your constituency, why are you going to shy away? Why are you going to deny them that value just because of certain perceptions that people might have about you? If you have something to offer, man or woman, step forward, give it. Don't let people remain impoverished, just because you are sensitive about certain things. It's not right. God has blessed us with different gifts, different abilities, and we must be faithful stewards of those abilities. And one of the ways to do that is to step forward for leadership. So I want women to start to rethink all those misconceptions and myths about politics and get involved. Absolutely.
I appreciate the encouragement, because truly in a lot of spheres you hear conversations like this, and a lot of hesitation as regards why women are shy or are very hesitant about entering politics is because of the reason you literally just spoke about. Nobody wants to be affiliated with not taking care of the family, not being responsible enough. I mean, if you're not responsible enough for your family, the popular perception would be, how can you be responsible enough for a whole state or a whole local government? And at the end of the day, you will not have their buy-in to get into these positions at the end of the day. So thank you again for that. It's 16 minutes to 12 on Women Radio 91.7, and this is still Political Arena, where we discuss politicking in Nigeria. I'm Somto Titilayo Ajama, and today I have with me my guest, TARI TAYLAUR, Youth Party House of Assembly candidate, ETI-OSA 1 constituency, Lagos State. We're discussing roadmap to 2023, exploring solutions to issues of funding for women in politics. You can call in to 07000 917 917. 07000 917 917. Send in a text or a WhatsApp message to 0703 175 6537. Now, coming back to you, TARI, how can political parties, because we just spoke about political parties being a focal point as to why women representation in politics is low, and why what role that they have to play as well in the situation with funding and how it affects women in politics. So how can political parties now remove the financial barriers that come along with women in politics, or that follow women in politics?
Now, that's a tough question, Somto, right? Somto.
Yes.
Okay. That's a tough question. You know why? Because if a system is broken, if a system is dysfunctional, it is not only dysfunctional for women, it's dysfunctional for everyone. So unless you fix your broken systems, it will serve injustice to everybody, man or woman. So political parties, we have a lot to do in that regard. We have to fix these broken systems. We have to go back to our constitutions and let the spirit of our constitutions guide everything that we do. We have to make sure that, fair play, level playing field is available for every candidate. We have to make sure that the quality of candidates that we are putting forward are the best the best of Nigeria, the best brains, the best minds, the most passionate and, impactful leaders at the local level, at the state level, at the federal level. These should be even within the party executive. These are the people that should be at the forefront of running things at every level. So the political parties kind of like, we have to sort of, rejig the entire system, the entire machinery, and make sure that we are doing things right. It's not only about women.
Okay.
Sometimes, through this, I don't know if you heard, maybe, okay, you're not really in the political scene, but if you heard some of the stories that came out of this primaries exercise, what people had to go through. People who sometimes legitimately won their primaries were denied the ticket. Those kind of things are just not right. So until we overhaul all of those injustices within our party politics, it's always going, I'm sorry to say, but, we're not going to have the progress that we deserve to.
Absolutely. I see your point on that one. And I understand that in as much as it affects men, or in as much as it affects women, rather, if the system is dysfunctional according to you, it will affect even the men as well. But let me draw your attention to the fact that the 35% affirmative action that was finalized in favor of women, the judgment was in favor of women earlier in March last year, has now been taken to court by the Attorney General of the Federation and appealed by the federal government. So these kinds of situations are what tends to make people think that this system in general somehow does not exactly favor women when it comes to political representation, which is what the 35% affirmative action still represents. So if you look at it from that perspective, it's a bit... It stands to reason why the school of thought that says that women are not exactly favored in politics would be understood.
Okay, so you talk about systems. Who makes up systems? System is made up of what? People.
Yes. And in this case, people make up these political parties as well, right?
Yes.
So if there are systems that people make up and people also make up these political parties, is it not up to these people also to turn these systems around in favor of women? And when I say in favor of women, I'm not looking at it from the perspective of who's capable and who's not. Because technically, it only makes sense that you present who is capable and who is effective for the people to vote for, right? So if you look at it from that perspective, it behoves on the political parties to favor women in terms of how to enter these systems, how to be highlighted or how to be spotlighted in these systems.
Yes. Every political party, the rhetoric that we hear from every political party is in favor of what you're saying and what we're talking about. They say they want the affirmative action. They say they support, women participation, but in practice, in actual practice, they fall short. So, everybody pays lip service to the affirmative action that is required. Everybody pays lip service to 35% representation of female. But when it now comes down to the nitty-gritty, when the rubber hits the road, in the actual implementation of that, that's a requirement, to what extent are we meeting up? It's very low. And a lot of times when you engage people, within the political space, that what they say to you is, yes, so where are the women? You want us to keep aside 35%. Okay, but where are the women that are going to occupy that 35%? That's what they keep saying. And that now feeds back to what we were talking about earlier, which is that a lot of women are not stepping forward. A lot of women are shying away. So that there is even now that perspective of things as well, because they would ask you, where are the women? Absolutely.
Understood clearly. So, Tari, we're going to wrap up in a bit, but I want us to now, focus on the solutions to funding. Initially, you talked about pressure groups or organizations with causes and people with causes that they believe in that would that can back up or that should back up these female candidates. That is one point, and I would appreciate it if we can get about two more solutions to these issues concerning funding, because I believe that if these issues concerning funding are largely solved, it will increase the probability or possibility for more women to be represented in governance, enough to be elected, not just being put out there and campaigning, but enough to actually fill these positions, going back to what you said about where are these women in the first place.
Okay, so something else that is very important is, community support. Community being in the sense of, women, I know this is a bit of a cliche, but women supporting women in that sense. Women have to be willing to identify women whose leadership they trust, whether it's at the constituency level for the House of Assembly or for local government elections or for the House of Representatives or Senate. Women need to be able to identify other women that they trust and support them. Now, support, when we talk about funding, a lot of times we just think about money. And yes, money is a big part of it because you use money to logistics, things like all your deliverables and all of that. However, there are also some line items on your budget that you may not necessarily get the physical cash for, but people supporting you, it will come in kind. For example, Women's Radio. If Women's Radio identified certain females that they wanted to support, they would give them, they may support them in airtime. And that, if translated to monetary value, would have its costs. You know what I mean? So what's that line item on your budget that maybe you budgeted at 500,000 or 1 million naira for radio engagements? Women Radio supporting you may have taken, and I'm being hypothetical here. Absolutely. You understand what I mean? The station supporting you has taken care of that cost for you. So these are ways that funding can be accomplished. It could be somebody that prints merchandise, banners, posters, T-shirts, all of that. Somebody might say, don't worry, I'm going to print you 1,000 T-shirts just because I buy into what you're supporting. So those things will help you tick off, line items on your budget, and in that way, it has been funded. So a lot of times and of course, there are cash contributions. There are times when you need to actually make cash donations, to people who are running, because campaigns run on cash. On funds, yes. So you need cash, and people need to contribute cash to your campaign. But I think that a lot of times, and even just sharing, when you come across candidate campaign material, you believe in the candidate, share the material. Make yourself a faithful, sharer of that candidate's material. Share to your community, share to your network. When it's time for election, volunteer to be a polling agent for other women. Women, you have to pay polling agent. It's a line item on the budget, and quite a very substantial one for that matter. The amount of money you have to pay polling agents in all of the polling units. So if you put yourself forward and say, you know what, I'm going to volunteer as a polling agent, you've helped that woman in part of her funding because you've taken off that cost, for her. So there's so many ways that, funding can be raised. Just if we just think out of the box, if we just expand our thinking of what it means to fund and what it means to support a candidate. I think that there's so many ways that we can give each other the support we need. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Tari. I've had a lovely conversation with you today. Thank you for spending time with us.
I've enjoyed it myself.
On Political Arena. Absolutely. So as we wrap up, I'm going to ask you one final question that I need you to answer very briefly because we're pressed for time. So ETI-OSA, one constituency, what do they stand to gain with you as their frontliner? What do they stand to gain if you actually do get into this position?
Wow. a better deal than what they have right now. Many of them don't even know who their current representative is or who they have been in the past. So first of all, I will be that representative that they will know, that they will be able to access, that they will be able to engage. So number one, that's what they're going to get. And I'm committed to a clean environment. Isn't it nice to live in a space that you can enjoy and that you are proud of? The work I've been doing privately shows that I have demonstrated that I have the capacity to engage government agencies, local government authorities, PSPs, and even residents and stakeholders in making sure that we have an environment that we can all be proud of and enjoy. And secondly, youth employment. There are so many young people that are just doing nothing in my constituency. I have the capacity, the network, the innovative thinking to be able to bring in partnership to the constituency so that we can engage and employ those thousands of young people that are just sitting idle.
Absolutely. And that is very much needed in the world that we live in today, in the Nigeria that we live in today. So, yes, I believe that you really have the vision and hopefully things turn out in your favor. Thank you so much, Tari. Thank you for spending time with us again. And please, please have a lovely day.
Thank you. You too, Somto. Thank you.
Yes. And you've heard it from Tari TAYLAUR, House of Assembly candidate for Youth Party ETI-OSA 1 constituency here in Lagos State. Today we just discussed exploring solutions to issues of funding in Nigeria. In politics, rather, issues of funding for women in politics. And it is so important to note what she said towards her closing, that it's not all about money. Money really is important, but it's not all about money. And then groups, people, individuals, well-meaning individuals, women groups, civil society organizations that believe in a candidate can as well throw their backing, throw their funds, throw their resources, throw their connections behind a particular candidate and actually get them to that position where they should be to make the needed change. Thank you so much once again for tuning into Political Arena today. And next week on Wednesday by 11:30 a.m. on Women Radio 91.7 is another time on Political Arena. Thank you very much to Esther Alaribe for her support on this program. My name is Somto Titilayo Ajamma. Good morning.
WFM 91.7.